Now, speaking of college basketball and March Madness, final topic of the day, and we talking college basketball. And if you're looking for a title of the segment and whatnot, or if you're trying to figure out what the title of the segment is, it's crack simple. We're calling it March Madness Watch, ladies and gentlemen, because that is exactly what we're on right now. Once All-Star Weekend is over in the NBA, March Madness Watch begins, which is today. It begins today, and it goes all the way up to Selection Sunday on March 12th, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to kick it off with the men's side here, and to begin, the recap what took place over the weekend. After Indiana took their loss to the Northwestern Wildcats, they went home and took their payback out on Illinois, winning in by 371-68. Tennessee, they felt the wrath of the Kentucky Wildcats at Rupp Arena, with the Wildcats upsetting and sweeping the Tennessee Volunteers 66-54. The Volunteers have lost both meetings with the Kentucky Wildcats. The Red River Showdown was in Austin, Texas, with the Texas Longhorns trying to sweep the season series of their Oklahoma Sooners rivalries, and they did just so, but they needed overtime to do it because these two teams kept battling back and forth. The sixth-ranked Longhorns escape home upset 85-83 in overtime. Sticking in a bit to the 12th-ranked Kansas State Wildcats, they was hosting on 19th-ranked Iowa State Cyclone. Big day for Keontae Johnson. He was on display for the Wildcats as the Wildcats win 61-55. Down in the ACC, head down to Corey Gables down in Miami, Florida, as the 15th-ranked Hurricanes took care of business against the Wake Forest Demon Deacons 96-87. But we're not done here. After Purdue went and lost to Northwestern, they went to Maryland and they took a beating by the Terrapins 68-54. The third-ranked Purdue Boilermakers went down again, making it their fourth loss of the season, and surprisingly to the Maryland Terrapins. Well, that's it. Would that be enough to get the Terrapins into the NCAA tournament with the 18-8 record with a top 3 win, by the way? From the Big 10 back to the Big 12, TCU, ranked 22nd in the country, hosted Oklahoma State, and they put it on Oklahoma State. 100 was dropped in a college game, ladies and gentlemen. TCU got the century mark and beat Oklahoma State 75-100, a 25-point win. Then your primetime game, I want to say primetime game, but your headline game of the weekend took us to Lawrence, Kansas. The Allen Fieldhouse as the Kansas Jayhawks hosted the Baylor Bears in a top 10 showdown in the Big 12. And in the first half, it was all Baylor up 13 at the halftime. But you see the final score, 87-71 win for the Kansas Jayhawks. They put on a display and a show in the second half, dropping 55 points in the second half alone as Kansas overcame a 13-point halftime deficit to win by 16. That is a 29-point difference from the first half to the second half. Shout out to Kansas and did so. To the ACC, we had a North Carolina rivalry when North Carolina Tar Heels took the trip to Raleigh, North Carolina, to face off with the 23rd-ranked Wolfpack of North Carolina State. In North Carolina, they are struggling, and Northwestern, they are prime and ready for NCAA tournament run, 77-69 Wolfpack over the Tar Heels. Down to the American Conference, the second-ranked Houston Cougars hosted Memphis, Penny Hardaway's team, and Kevin Sampson got the best of Penny Hardaway on this one, 72-64. Big win, a big win for the Cougars over the Tigers. Then after that took place this weekend, here's your new AP Top 25 rankings for Week 16. Houston reclaims the number 1 spot once again. Alabama falls to number 2 after their loss to the Tennessee Titans earlier in the week. Kansas jumps up to 3. UCLA remains at 4. Purdue drops from 3 to 5. Virginia is at 6. Arizona 7. Texas 8. Baylor 9. Despite losing in spectacular fashion to Kansas. Marquette is 10. Shout out to Soccer Smart and what he's doing with the Marquette Eagles, the 10th ranked team in the country. The rest of your top 25, you have Tennessee at 11, Gonzaga 12, Miami 13, Kansas State 14, St. Mary's 15, Xavier 16, Indiana 17, UConn 18, Creighton 19, Providence coming in at 20, Northwestern, the heat check of the day comes in at 21, San Diego State 22, Iowa State 23, TCU 24, and rounding out the top 25, it is the Texas A&M Aggies. Now, over the last week, the committee came out with their bracket preview, the top 16 seeds before what took place this weekend. Alabama was the number 1 overall seed, and then you had Houston, Purdue, and Kansas all being number 1 seeds, as you can see here. You see Indiana, you see Baylor, you see Virginia, you see Xavier, Texas, Tennessee, Marquette, UCLA, Iowa State, Gonzaga, Arizona, and Kansas State. But can it stay this way with the remaining games left in conference tournament? I doubt it. Now we are forced to see Houston, Purdue, Kansas, and Alabama as number 1 seeds. Maybe Purdue might be the one that dropped to a 2 seed, and Kansas might, and a team like Arizona might come back and grab the 1 seed. But outside of that, I don't see these top 16 teams staying in this order in this way. There'll be some new teams in new spots, in my opinion. Nevertheless, Bubble watch. It's always a great time this time of year because we got to watch the team that's on the bubble. And here are the teams that's on the bubble according to Jordan Arnauti of ESPN. Nevada. The last 4 buys, Nevada, Wolfpack. Boise State, Broncos. The Memphis Tigers, and the West Virginia Mountaineers. The last 4 in. Kentucky Wildcats. North Carolina Tar Heels. Wisconsin Badgers, the Clemson Tigers. You have 2 blue bloods on the last 4 in line in Kentucky and North Carolina. Raise your hand if you thought going into the season that both North Carolina and Kentucky would be at the last 4 in slot past the midway point of February with just about a handful of games left before beginning the conference tournament. Anybody? No. I'm not wrong. Good. First 4 out, Mississippi State of the SEC, UCLA of the Pac-12, fellow Pac-12, Oregon State, Charleston. The next 4 out, New Mexico, Seton Hall, Utah, and Wake Forest. That is what is going on the men's side of things, as you can see. And then the game's coming up tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Big game tonight. Top 25 matchup at Fort Worth, Texas, as the 22nd ranked TCU Horned Frogs will be hosting. Actually, these ain't the new rankings haven't come out yet. This one I did. This the new rankings haven't come out yet, so I need to change that. So we talking TCU and Kansas, right? So we're talking the 24 versus 3 in Kansas versus TCU. You got Baylor and K-State on ESPN2. So ESPN2, you have. So, no, tonight, the only game you need to watch tonight is Kansas and TCU tonight. Tomorrow at 7 p.m., Baylor KU on ESPN2. On ESPN at the same time at 7 p.m., Tennessee is at Texas A&M, who is ranked 25. FS1 at 8:30 tomorrow, Marquette and Creighton do battle. And on the Longhorn Network, you have Iowa State and Texas do battle. That is the men's side. We going over to the women's side, ladies and gentlemen. You know I got to show love to my ladies, and shout out to Miss Megan Price for joining me that day when we did our WNBA special, our women's special, should I say, talking both WNBA and women and college women's basketball. But for here, we're going to get it started here. This is what took place over the weekend, ladies and gentlemen. The 18th ranked Wildcats of Arizona upset the 4th ranked Utah Utes 82-72. Big win for the Wildcats. Tough loss for the Utah Utes. Nevertheless, they are still in prime position to be in the NCAA tournament. The most dominant team in the Pac-12, the Stanford Cardinals, continue to win Pac-12 games left and right as they survive the 25th ranked Trojans of USC 50-47. UConn, after losing to South Carolina in game of the week last Sunday, they took their talents down to Philadelphia to take on the Villanova Wildcats. 6 versus 14 with number 6 in firm control of this game, not allowing Villanova to get within 5 points of them throughout the entire game. Thus, the UConn Huskies ladies get back on track 60-51. Then after the Arizona Wildcats took down Utah, they had 21st ranked Colorado come walking into Tempe, Arizona, and Tucson, Arizona, so I say, and they gave the Buffaloes the business, 61-42. Big win for the Wildcats. Another top 25 win for the Lady Wildcats on that. But we had an upset after the 25th ranked Trojans fell short against the Cardinals. They went down to Cal to take on the Cal Bears, and the Lady Bears gave the Trojans another L, 81-78. Bad loss. Very bad loss for the Lady Trojans in that one. After those, these were the rankings. By the way, South Carolina did survive their overtime game against Ole Miss. Very close call. But nevertheless, here's your top 25 for the ladies' side. South Carolina number 1, 27-0, obviously. Indiana number 2. Stanford number 3. UConn number 4. LSU 5. Iowa 6. Maryland 7. Utah drops to 8. Virginia moves up to 9. And Notre Dame stays at 10. 11-25. Duke, Michigan, Oklahoma, Arizona, and Villanova round out the top 15, followed by Ohio State, UCLA, Gonzaga, Texas, and Iowa State at 20. And then Colorado, North Carolina, Florida State, UNLV, Middle Tennessee State. Shout out to Middle Tennessee State and Illinois, both being tied for the 25th and final spot of the top 25 rankings. Here's all the top 16 teams for the according to the committee going into this week. South Carolina number 1, Indiana number 2, Stanford 3, UConn 4, LSU 5, Utah 6, Iowa 7, Duke 8, Maryland 9, Indiana, Notre Dame 10, Michigan 11, Texas 12, Virginia Tech 13, North Carolina 14, Villanova 15, Ohio State 16. But that will change, obviously, because we still got games to play in the conference tournament to go at. So speaking of which, Charlie Cream's Bubble Watch. Ladies and gentlemen of ESPN, we did Joe United for the men. Now it's time for Charlie Cream in the women's. Last 4 buys, Oregon, Washington State, Purdue, and Georgia. With the last 4 in being Arkansas, Marquette, Princeton, and Mississippi State. Interesting there. Very interesting. Princeton has a chance to sneak in. And the Lady Golden Eagles, or Marquette, got a chance to sneak in too. First 4 out, Nebraska, West Virginia, Syracuse, and St. John. And St. John was having a stellar start to the season, and they have been telling off lately. And then they haven't seen to pick it back up. But if St. John can pick it back up, they can make the tournament. But they got to pick it back up. The next 4 out, Kansas State, Missouri, Rhode Island, and Toledo. And the games to be prepared for between tonight and tomorrow in the college women games. First off, we going to the Big 12. We have the game kicking it off at 7 p.m. 13th-ranked Ohio State taking a trip to Ann Arbor, Michigan to take on the 12th-ranked Michigan Wolverines in this rivalry. This should be a doozy one here. Then on ESPN2 at 9 p.m., we have a top 20 matchup in the Pac-12. When the 16th-ranked Lady Bruins of UCLA take on the Stanford Cardinals, 3rd team in the country. Tomorrow, we talk about St. John's, and you can see they can get back on track. Well, they have a tall test because they take on the UConn Huskies in Connecticut. And then finally, at 8 p.m., Iowa is taking a trip to Maryland to take on the Terrapins. Cady Clark taking on the Maryland Terrapins. This should be a doozy one to watch too tomorrow as well, ladies and gentlemen. That should be a doozy.